Hello, everyone. Welcome to an Amiga-rific ARG Presents. Hey, come on, it's Amiga-rific. I'm Amigo Aaron, joined by a man that today is so sick we literally had to wheel him out of the morgue. The Brent.
Hey guys, I will try not to be sick. It hasn't worked all week, but I'm going to keep trying.
We should have used that graveyard backdrop that I had earlier. It would have made more sense. So, if you were here last week, you saw us spin the wheel, and we made the incredible deal. And today, we're going to be looking at games on the glorious, underrated, underappreciated, overpowered Amiga CD32. But before we do that, Brent, we're going to do something unusual in the show. We got some lovely, awesome mail from our good friend, Tapes from the Crypt, over on Amigos earlier in the week. And he has included something right up your alley. So I've got it here in this bag to cheer you up. This right here, now our good friend Tapes from the Crypt, one of the many fine folks that send us baubles, treasures,
trinkets from beyond,
unearthed goodies,
yes,
weird stuff from all over the world. And this had your name written all over it. And so I'm going to present this to you as a gift for you. Let me get in here. And first of all, you've got to have this. Dun, 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 dun. Show the people. Show the people.
Oh, whoa. It'd be a baby Wonder Swan, yo.
That's right. And to go with the Wonder Swan, what do you have to have? The game that you died for. Bam.
Hey. It's a Gunpei.
It's Gunpei, folks. Gunpei. Brent's favorite game. Now, I fired this thing up the other night. I put a battery in it. It works like a charm. I played Gunpei. It still stinks. But
hey, this was a decent game. It was a decent game. I know you liked it.
And I'd like to thank Tapes for two things.
Holy moly.
One, for sending us this lovely gift. And two, for being one of the few people to watch the Wonder Swan episode. Yes.
Both of them.
That's right. That's right. So.
Well, that's amazing. Yes. I can't wait to play with this later.
Yes, I knew you'd love that. So, let's move this thing along. Brent.
Yo.
What do you know about this glorious CD32 unit?
I know it was the last-ditch effort of a desperate man.
That's not entirely correct. But they were getting desperate. Now, a lot has been said about the Amiga, the Amiga story, the rise and fall of Commodore, and the tragic end to a wonderful machine. Obviously, I'm Amigo Aaron. I love the Amiga. And the CD32 could have been a contender. It really could have been.
It had the power.
The problem it ran into, as we'll get into here in a moment, is it came at the worst possible time for Commodore. So we'll talk about this too. Now, I learned some stuff when I was doing research for this that I didn't know. Did you know that when this was in development, the code name for it, and this is appropriate for your game, was Spellbound?
No.
Spellbound.
I mean, that's a horrible console name, but a great development name.
That's right. That's right. So, when this thing released, it came out September 17th of 93 in the EU, and it came out in Australia in 93 as well. So, this thing released. You want to take a guess on the release price of this unit when it came out? Remember, again, September 17th, 1993.
In 93 money, I'm going to say $375.
You're very close. $399, or around. It's right around $700 reduced today, U.S. dollars.
Yeah, well, this was more of an era when I paid attention to consoles and prices. And...
Oh, there you go. Now, I tried to get numbers on this. Now, numbers on the Amiga CD32 have always been sketchy, and I keep seeing this number pop around that they sold approximately 100,000 of these in Europe. Okay, that's the number that's everyone's got. We live in a cut and paste world when it comes to these facts. That's true. Everywhere. Now, I'm wagering there are a significant amount more floating around than what were sold, which I'll get into in a moment. Now, if you're not familiar with the Amiga series, it's a series of computers made by Commodore, a revolutionary series of computers that debuted with the Amiga 1000 in 85. And they were so far ahead of the curve, it's unfreaking believable. But unfortunately, the curve caught up as Commodore sort of staggered in circles and released weird stuff. And by the time they got their act together, the door was closing on them. And so this literally was their last best hope. And this is entirely based on the Amiga 1200 line of home computers, which is one I have, which has a 68020 Motorola processor in it. Great machine for its day, and a prized machine these days. The CD32 was long sort of kicked to the curb. You'd see these things in boot sales overseas all the time. We're selling them for a song. Plenty of people told me they got these things for 30 pounds or 20 pounds. Those days are over. These things are going for big money now because due to modern expansion, you could literally turn these things into a Amiga 1200 computer with all the frills and coolness that entails. Believe it or not, this thing got demonstrated by Commodore all the way back in the earliest parts of '93 to get ready to sell it. So not that far back, but they had this thing on the works for a while. I went back. We actually interviewed David Pleasance on the Amigos, and I had listened to it for a while, and went back and listened to it. And he was talking. He said this is the only product he had that Commodore in his tenure there that they did right. That they took the time to plan. They had time to get everything together the way they wanted it until the end. And at the end, they rushed this thing out the door without enough support. The early support gates for this were kind of
the launch
low.
titles were kind of crappy.
Yeah, the titles that launched with this were Sleepwalker, I believe was meant to be one, and let me see here. I think I'm trying to think what the other. Oh no, it ended up being Mean Streets, and there was one other, but they were not what I would call they were not titles.
Not quality launch titles.
Here's basically the story of this thing. Commodore was going broke, and they needed this thing out the door, and so they made it as many as they could, and they got them ready to go. Now, they wanted to get in on that lucrative Christmas season in '93. These weren't actually. These came out months ahead of when they were supposed to hit that. And this was a last-minute effort made by idiot, overpaid executives. Idiot, overpaid executives that killed the company, by the way. And that's a whole other story. Don't even get me started on these idiots. The more I research this stuff, the madder I get. So, the guy that ran Commodore made more money than the guy that ran IBM.
Yeah.
I mean, substantially more.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the death knell of Commodore.
Was crooked all over.
It was a loot. It was a straight up loot. So, but I'll get to that some other day, not on this show. So, when this thing came out, despite the fact that they had development kits and stuff, and they had released these to developers, the developers weren't ready. Yeah. And so what happened was, and what ended up, I mean, really, I don't know if it would have mattered if you had top shelf developers on board. But what happened overall was you got a lot of stuff shoveled directly from the Commodore 1200, or in some cases, stuff shoveled from the older computers. Just put on discs.
Yes.
Discs on the Amiga CD32 are routinely are like less than 10 meg of space on these discs because it was not used. So it was the sad situation. And like I said, this system in some ways reminds me of the PC Marty or the FM Towns Marty, which we'll get to, and we talked about it before, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But the FM Towns Marty they were far more prepared. Yeah. They gave it a good hard shot with an excellent back catalog, and they released a lot more quality titles for their CD unit than Commodore did. Now that's not to say good titles didn't come out, but they were slow coming.
Now I have a question for you.
All right.
Because when this thing launched, did it have a pack-in? Do you know?
I think the pack-in. I know the pack-in was Mean Streets. I think was one of them. I'm trying to think what the other one was. So they were not what I would call quality pack-ins. Let's put it that way.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you think if the pack-in would have been like 15 or 20?
Oh, here it is. Diggers and Dangerous Streets. Those are the ones. The Diggers is okay. Dangerous Streets, it's okay.
So if instead of that, if your pack-in was say a disc with like 15 or 20 quality port overs, do you think that would have made a difference?
From the 1200?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. When you buy a CD system, a new one like this, a big revolution. I mean, you can see they proudly put 32-bit in the front.
Right.
You've got to wow these people out of the gate.
I agree. But you don't think you can do that with enough? You don't think there are enough quality 1200 titles to make people say?
At the time, oh yeah. But at the time, you were going to get 12 or 15 of these on a disc. It wouldn't be. No one would do it. No one. Now you get hundreds of these things on disc because hackers have done it. But in the day, no. I don't think it was feasible to get that many
let's
games
say
on there.
10. Let's say, I think 10 is reasonable, don't you?
No, I don't. There are plenty of these games that discless thing that released 2 or 3 games on it. You know, like I remember there was what was the shooting game? It seems like Hybris, another game were on a disc. They would put these compilation discs, but I mean it was like 2, 3 games tops. I don't remember seeing any without 10 games on it.
I think if this would have launched, because most people, especially when you go into the console market, I think putting the Amiga name on it was a bad idea. I think they should have just disassociated themselves and just been a new thing.
Well, the Amiga had built-in support though in Europe.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I got that. But I think if they would have released this under the guise of a different console, put a pack in, even if it only had 5 games, 5 top quality Amiga games that the general public wouldn't have known about and wouldn't have played, I think that would have pushed this thing a lot farther.
Well, one thing that didn't push it very far were problems getting this to the U.S.
Well, yeah.
Now it's funny, and the generally thought reason that these didn't get shipped into the U.S. is because of a patent dispute. They basically didn't pay one of their bills. The patent holder came a calling, okay, and he got an injunction that would not let these get released in the U.S. And so the word on the street was there was a warehouse or multiple warehouses in the Philippines full of these things waiting to ship to the U.S. I talked to the man. I talked to Pleasance about this. This and his response. I had to go back and watch it because I'd forgotten it. But once I watched, I remember because it was funny. The guy that was put in charge of manufacturing and of these things had decided to move their plant to the Philippines. Pleasance argued that this made no sense because they don't have any shipping that goes on in the Far East over there. They don't have any shipping points that are easy to get to from the Philippines. Right. It's a bad place to put it. But then he goes into the reason why this was done. The guy that made the decision had a mistress in the Philippines. Think about that. Now, this is straight from the man. You can go back and watch the interview. I'll link it up. And this may be in his book. I haven't got to read the book yet. But the guy in charge of this sort of stuff had a mistress that lived in the Philippines. Now, it was when we asked Mr. Pleasance about these warehouse CD32s, he told me that, to the best of his knowledge, one of the problems was they were being taxed by the Philippine government, and Commodore didn't have money to pay the tax, and they wouldn't release them.
Wow.
Now, because I asked him, 10 years ago or so, these things started popping up new in box on eBay.
Right.
And the word on the street, and I can't say it with any validity, but the word on the street was that these things were finally being sold off out of this warehouse, that someone had bought them, out of hock. And so it was a sad date. So this thing limped along through 94, and not too long into 94, I might add. And in April 29th, the sad day, 1994, they discontinued the CD32. Now, the sad truth of it is, for Christmas of 93, this was a pretty hot seller, and it outsold the Mega Drive. And so on. I mean, they actually did pretty well over in Europe, and they pretty much sold their stock, all right, of CD32s. They couldn't make enough, all right. So they've got some they can't use. And of course, all the ones that they had stored in the Philippines, I guess, were all NTSC.
Right.
And so Canada got some, which is probably where this came from. That's an NTSC unit there. But the NTSC units are pretty rare for the obvious reason that they didn't make that many. So it was a sad day. So this thing literally had a lifespan of less than a year, which is, it's a travesty. Now, that much said, people are still playing with them, there's much like the Amiga community, people have gotten behind it, made new hardware. There's new compilations that come out all the time. It seems like every month where a guy will come through and put together stuff. We should probably talk about the unit a little bit. You can see the unit here. It's sort of reminiscent of the Mega Drive in some ways, the Genesis, with the big bubble top here. You push the button here, and this opens the CD door. You've got a little volume slider down here for a headphone jack. You've got RGB, or you've got composite out. You've also got S-video out, which is nice.
Huge, yeah.
You've got 2 ports on the side, and you've got an expansion area back here that is used to put a few things in, including an MPEG option. This thing can play video, which is sort of the same thing that the CDI was doing. This thing is the CDI are sort of similar, except CDI had better backing, but pretty much not much more success, to be honest with you. There was an expansion released at the time that could turn this thing into an Amiga 1200. It was expensive. It's highly sought after these days.
Right. I'm sure they didn't make many.
SX1, SS2, I think what they called. The gamepad is controversial here. If you were watching the video, you can see it there. It's sort of a reverse boomerang style.
It's a big U.
It is.
It's a stretched out U.
It's got colored buttons. They have DVD or CD features on them. The fast forward and stop. And it's got a shoulder button up here on the top. And start. A lot of people don't like this joystick, but I think I have a feeling a lot of people haven't used them. I use this. I have pretty much made this my everyday Amiga gamepad, and I think it does a really good job.
I don't think it's horrible.
It looks goofy.
Yeah, it looks dumb.
Yeah, it looks goofy, and it doesn't look like it'd be comfortable until you hold it, but it's actually not bad.
I mean, it holds the same as a Super NES controller. Maybe not quite as ergonomic, but it's the same basic bear.
Yeah. This thing, if you put a music disc in it, it can play it. It gives you a cool background when you play it. It's pretty nice. It does a good job. And, of course, you could also plug a mouse into this for mouse games. An Amiga mouse will work in it. In fact, you could even get the hidden menu if you hold the mouse buttons when you boot it up. Like I said, these days, a lot of people expand these things into a full-blown Amiga. And when you do that, what you've got effectively is an Amiga computer with the CD-ROM, which is nice. Now, again, not as important today as it would have been, even 10 years ago, but still pretty interesting. They're pretty durable little units. I've never had too much trouble with mine. When I got it shipped here, the CD-ROM cable had gotten pulled out. I stuck it back in.
And that was probably due to shipping.
That's right, yeah, shipping. So I like mine. I will admit, since I've got the 1200 with the with the compact flash, I don't use this thing as much as it's funny, right when I got this, I got the jacked up 1200, but this was sort of this was one of my white whales. I had to get it, so yeah. I'm happy to have it, Excuse me. So, with all that in mind, we were tasked with picking a couple games from the CD32 library. Now, our sort of rule was we were going to pick some stuff that wasn't necessarily available on the Amiga per se, like never sold on it. Now, this stuff can be played on the Amiga now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was not released. So we picked a couple games. I guess I'll lead the charge this week, Brinster, since I picked what I picked. And so what I chose this week was Microcosm, or Cosm, if you will. And you can see there's the disc right here, the Microcosm disc. I didn't get the box, unfortunately, but I got the disc, which I actually used this week. Still works. So the story of Microcosm is much more interesting than Microcosm, which as you'll find out. So this came out in '94, which I think most of our games are going to come out in '93 or '94. And this was published by Psygnosis, and this was sort of done. The production of this was sort of done in house with some it was sort of like a top level programmers club that they got together to put this thing down. The CD is actually pretty robust. I mean, it's not like we talked about earlier, like 4 or 5 or 10 megs on a
Yeah,
disc.
it takes up about 350.
Yeah,
megs.
this has got a full music soundtrack, which we'll get into now. I'm going to talk about what this is. And I'm going to talk about how it became. So here's what it is. Wrapped in an elaborate wrapper. Okay, this game is a shoot 'em up type game, a shmup, I should say, that is backed with video graphics. All right, like full motion graphics.
Yeah.
The premise of this game is you're going into the human body and you're fighting various cells and impurities that are in this guy's body. All right, it's the old inner space gimmick.
Yeah.
Okay. Wrapped around that simple premise is a confusing, weird video montage or video or show, whatever you want to call it, that is pretty impressive yet strangely disturbing and wrong.
I think that's fair so far.
The video of this is keeping in mind that this came out in the age where if you had something on CD, it's got to have a bunch of video on it. Okay, this starts out in this sort of like dystopian looking future, or like a future city where it was full of helicopters that are flying around. And after, I'm going to summarize this in a minute, and it actually takes 5 minutes to actually do. But your helicopters fly around in this city. It's a rendered city. You know, it's probably cost them pretty good money at the time. I think they used Sun computers to generate this, I read, but they eventually a hospital helicopter lands in this building, and some guards are there. It's like, get them in there, and the roof kind of goes down, and the helicopter goes in, and presumably your team is on this helicopter coming in to get injected in this guy. There's a weird subplot of some guy that tries to sabotage it, and he gets taken out by some guards. It's real.
That's what that part was.
Did you watch this video?
Oh yeah.
Am I missing something? Because I looked at this, I stared on in wonderment. Because I also don't have the docs for this, so I just intro's 5 minutes. They don't spell it out for me. What the hell was happening there, Brent?
First of all, something you failed to mention is their way of covering up the sort of FMV fogginess was to turn the brightness all the way down. So this thing was dark.
Well, I'll get into some of why that is here in a moment.
And
go ahead.
So there are 2 companies that are rivals that are fighting each other for some reason that's not expressed in the game. And then there is a guy that tries to betray a doctor, and he gets shot.
Yeah. I got that part.
And then the game starts.
Yeah. Literally, the game, you're watching video, you're like, oh, that's like, bam, you better have the joystick in hand. You're like, ah! There's no warning or get ready. It just goes from FMV to game. And you're, careening down this vein or whatever. So, we come from the well, I do, and you were into it. We come from the old days of Laserdisc games.
Yes. Oh, this screamed
like the arcade. Yes. And one of the games this reminded me of, Sega had out. It had several names. I think it was called like Star Ranger was one. Another one it reminded me of was Vegas Battle to a certain degree.
Yes.
And what these games have in common is they are rudimentary shmups laid over video.
Yes.
Sometimes it works pretty good, and I'll use Mach 3 as an example of when they take video, lay a shooter over it, and they do a decent job. I like Mach 3.
Yeah, it's the best. It's the best.
It is. Sometimes it don't work that good, and I will use a Vegas Battle as an example, but there are plenty of others where it's literally they just said, okay, put together a stupid shoot 'em up, and we'll lay it over this video. With this premise, the CD32 Microcosm used in its big game time. This is a game that is so much thought and preparation and brilliance went into the background, so they forgot about the part where you play the game, unfortunately. So you play. This game has a lot in common with, say, a Blood Money.
What?
Well, I'm going to explain. much like Blood Money, you get to pick which path you want to go down in this guy's body. There's like, you can go to his brain, you can go to like femur, you can go a couple of places, which you can do that in Blood Money. It's also rock hard, but that's pretty much where the comparison ends. Oh, no, there's also in Blood Money, your ship is different between different areas. Same in this. There are some places in this where you're a guy in a spacesuit, and some places in this you're a ship. It doesn't matter. That's all fluff. What you're actually doing is going down a dark hallway, dark body area that's streamed off the disc, and you're shooting stuff coming at you. Now, each area has different enemies. They're nondescript. In the true Psygnosis shmup style, they're just these sort of, I guess they look like, I don't know, they look like body stuff or
wagon
whatever.
wheels.
Yeah.
It certainly looks like wagon wheels.
Now, the second you start this game, you will instantly realize the folly of it.
The mistake that where you put your money.
Everywhere your ship is, that's where the bullets are going to be. Non-stop. The aliens never miss, and their bullets never stray. So, what does that mean? This is the most frenetic shooting game of all time. If you sit still for 1 second, you die.
Yes.
There is no time for standing still or resting. No time for love, Dr. Jones. You're moving non-stop. So what that means is you look like an idiot when you play this, because you're going like this with the joystick, and your ship's like, people have different styles. I watched our good buddies over at Lemon Tube, the Lemon Amiga guys that do YouTube videos, and his style was he would kind of go in, like this, in circle. I kind of like the crisscross applesauce, like the infinity sign. But it didn't matter.
No.
You can only live for a little while before you're slaughtered. And then when you're slaughtered, you'll start back the area where you get to pick where you go. Now, if you can live far enough, and I will say I was not very good at this game. In fact, I was hideous at it. If you live long enough, there will be a lovely cutscene that is sort of woven into the scene of your guy going like from one passage to another, for example. And then then pain comes. There are like 4 or 5 of these before you get to the end of it. It's brutal. Brutally long. It's brutally boring. Something else I should mention. The backgrounds in this are gross. They're not appealing. They may be realistic. Don't get me wrong, but they're not appealing backgrounds.
I don't think this is as bad as like an Avodox or anything. They're so non-detailed, and the pace is so frantic that I hardly even noticed them.
The funny thing about this game, so this is a little background. This game was heavily funded by the people behind the FM Towns Marty. Okay, this was going to be their flag.
So it was sabotage.
No, they dropped a bucket of money. I read an interview with a guy from Psygnosis that worked in this game, and this was going to be one of the big titles for FM Towns Marty, right? And so they wanted this stuff in a certain way, and so these guys got together, and they got the brain trust together on this to go to work on it, and they were very particular. This thing had been in development for a long time. I mean, before the Sega CD was around, before anything was around, this was being developed. This was going to be a top-tier title for the FM Towns Marty. So they went so far as to get Rick Wakeman, and do you know who that is?
Nope.
He's from Yes, the band Yes. Remember Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Owner of a Lonely Heart, a stream of great. I love Yes. He did a couple tracks on the FM Towns Marty game disc. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about Mr. Wakeman's help on these games, and he only was licensed to do the Marty version. So he from what I've read, none of the Wakeman tracks appear on any other version of this, and this got a released all over the place. But so if you're looking for Yes, you have to import the FM Towns Marty version. The fellow also said that when they were making this, of course, it never occurred to them to get actors or voice actors. All right, well, then they need money. Everyone in this is just a dude. He also mentions one of the guys in this, acting in this, went on to actually win an Oscar, but not for acting. Got it for an effects Oscar.
Yeah.
So he said he he could tell people he acted alongside an Oscar winner, which is funny. He said that the FM Towns Marty people wanted the audio for their version to be in Japanese, and they would send over these guys to check to see how things are going. So finally, they had to beg those guys to come and speak the parts for Japanese, and he had no idea if they did a good job or not. So he had to get a guy and play it for him. It's like, is this any good? Can you hear what they're saying? Also, he said the lights they used for a lot of the scenes were real delicate, and so during as the day went on, where they were filming a lot of this stuff, the lights kept breaking, and at the end they had only a couple lights left, so it got dark. In case you were wondering why it got so dark there. So as much money was spent on this, it it is what it is. They used the Silicon graphics computers to generate all the video, the opening and whatnot. It's funny, the guy goes into the fact that when they were doing the FM Towns Marty, they couldn't convert this over. It wasn't working. The conversion was ugly. So they had to do a bunch of crap to convert it. Yeah. It was a real pain in the butt. The game, now get this. This game is not known as a roaring success, but it must have been popular in Japan or with the FM Towns Marty people because they bought the engine used in this for £250,000.
Wow.
So Psygnosis,
wow.
They did pretty good on that. They did okay. So what do you got here at the end of the day? You've got a game that was released on, I know that Sega got a port, 3DO, Towns Marty, and the PC, and the CDI. This is a who's who of CD failure here. What you've got here is one of those games that you put in to show your buddies for 5 minutes, and then you never, ever play this again.
And never let them touch the controller.
It's unplayable. All right, I'm going to say that again. And no, it's almost unplayable. How about that? You can sort of play it. It's gross looking. I told Brent before we started, it's the most beautiful, disgusting looking game of all time. Well rendered. The technology, the concepts, the smoothness of the transitions is great. I played this right off a proper disc, and it was good. I mean, it was very impressive, I thought, but the rest of the game was no good. I mean, the game, yes, I haven't touched on what you do in the game that much. You shoot. You can pick up health occasionally, pick up power-ups. I mean, it's as no frills a game as you're going to find. Your thoughts?
Well, first I want to congratulate you. You have somehow found a game that was worse than Crazy Golf.
No.
Yes.
No.
And here's why. Here's why. This game caused me physical pain by the flashing.
The
worked. Flashing that takes place, the seizure-inducing flashing, it caused me physical pain. It made me have to look away from the screen. It was so bad.
Yeah. It'll happen. There is some flashing.
This game has zero redeeming qualities. I could not watch a full playthrough of this on YouTube at double speed and make it through it. This has never happened to me before.
I will say I don't know the ending. I couldn't get that far either. It's like, my God.
The ending, I did skip around, and the game is about an hour and a half long, okay? And it is continuous moving. By the way, you can't play this game. If you're trying to play this game for enjoyment, it can't happen. Because you just literally zigzag around the screen and shoot indiscriminately, and then you either win or you lose, and you always lose.
Yeah.
So the end of the game has the dude whose body you're in waking up, and then you go to like this chamber and you resize to be full size, and the newspaper headlines which is how they do all their like story progression, is like Cybertech wins, like blah blah blah's alive. That's it. That's the ending. And you're like, what? There is no plot. There is no plot.
I'm sure it's in the manual, because I've got a plot synopsis right here.
Here's the plot synopsis. Ha ha, we have your money now. Okay? This is the first and probably only 0 out of 5 I'm ever going to give, because the game caused me physical pain while playing it.
Man, you made me feel a lot better about this game after that soliloquy. It hurt you, eh? Yes. So I won't give it that low a score, but in some ways it reminds me of Alcon, which we reviewed on the ST, in that it's just it's a flawed, broken game. It just doesn't work right, and you would expect better from those guys, who I think were too tied up in the technology to remember that they needed to get a game going.
They were, because this was the first console the first CD. I saw a comment from one of the developers that I can't remember exactly, but I believe it was the first console that wasn't a Laserdisc console that streamed video from the disc.
This was the CD32 was the second home console with the CD-ROM.
Yeah.
And we looked at the first one, the Up and Downs Mario, very similar. But I mean, all this is irrelevant. I think they got the technology, and you know what I would have done with this. I wanted to run this past you. So much of this game is going down like a well almost. This would have been a perfect time to bring back the old Gyrus style gameplay, where you spin around the outside, or some kind of Tempest, something like that. But they just didn't do it. I mean, this is. I'm trying to describe the game. It's sort of like how would you describe the actual way that stuff comes into the view?
Gyrus, except you're at the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. No. Is my point. It would be much more circling around would have made it a lot more interesting. I'm still. You could have viewed everything about this game was okay. Well, I mean, the plot's goop. That stuff's weird.
No, nothing about this game is okay.
What I'm saying is the video portions are cool looking. But
not really.
But the gameplay is, if they could have done something, you got to admit that if they'd done something about the actual gameplay, it would have been a okay, serviceable title.
I will fully agree. If there was a game there, it would have been a game.
I'll take it. The reception from this was interesting. It scored at the time it scored a wide swath. I saw scores in the 90s and the Amiga magazines all the way down to the 40s. A lot of people compared it to some of it to Space Harrier. CU Amiga gave the CD32 version an 86%, which I think's a little high for that game. But it is what it is. Yeah, maybe so, eh? At
least somebody got paid to play this mess.
The eBay pricing on this thing, I mean, you can get it for multiple systems, but it's not overly expensive. I mean, I've seen it. I saw the range going in the U.S., which you could actually get these things. They're not. I mean, new in box is gonna cost you, but you're talking, under $20, and sometimes well under that. And in the UK, there are a lot of copies of this too. So, if you want it, go get it. But you don't want it. You don't want it. So, Brent, to switch gears and something probably a little more palatable, what did you choose on your week of fun?
I went for the cutesy platformer Flink.
Okay, Flink.
Or, as it's known on the Amiga 32, the Misadventures of Flink.
Yeah, I will say I had not heard of this game.
I hadn't either. Yeah.
Yeah, but for you, you don't have to know about these things.
Yeah, but
I'm oblivious.
Flink, just for where it was released, it was also released on the Sega Master Drive and the Sega CD, both. The
Mega Drive.
Right.
The Master Drive. I don't know what that is.
No, Mega Drive. Yeah.
Yeah, you said Master Drive.
Oh well, that's that too.
I'm here to point out all your mistakes.
This was something that I think could have sold a system. I really do. We'll talk about the game a little bit before I get into that, though. Released in May of '94, so right at the end.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
Just after they discontinued it. That's another game of yours that was released at the worst possible time.
Yep. This was made by the same folks that made your all-time favorite game, Lionheart. Same artist, same programmers.
Yes.
They also went in later to do the Adventures of Lomax for the PS1.
Which I've not played. I've heard of it.
And yeah, that's based on the Lemmings property. But that I think that actually made them some money, which is good because this did not. Flink is a side-scrolling platformer with some puzzle elements, some jumping puzzles. It has a awesome spell system in it, and it is all about freeing powerful wizards from their gems to basically unlock this evil so that it can be properly defeated. Very, very interesting game. This was by far the most beautiful game I've seen coming from an Amiga property. I really believe that.
Hank Nyborg, he's the man.
The sound in this is good.
Yeah.
Not great. Not great. It did have.
It's your classic CD streaming sound.
Yeah, it's four people who worked on this. One guy did all the music. 2 people did the art and the development and the programming, and one guy was project manager, kind of held everything together.
Yeah.
4-person guy, 9 months.
Wow.
This got out the door in 9 months. That is staggering.
It is.
For the quality of game that this is. So Flink, it is really, when I heard it was Psygnosis, I thought, man, I'm doomed. This is going to be so over the top hard that I can't do anything about it.
Well,
no, not bad.
Oh, hard, yeah.
Hard. It's not. It's very playable. It's a lot more friendly than most of your Psygnosis games. However, it is plagued by sloshy controls. Everything just feels like you're walking in mud. So, Flink, you have your basic jump. You've got your basic action button, which allows you to pick up rocks, pick up enemies. The enemies are all 2-hit enemies. When you stomp on their head, it kind of stuns them. And then you stomp on again to finish them, or you can pick them up and throw them. You use the rocks in the games to solve puzzles at times. There's a lot of hanging vine mechanics where you're climbing, that kind of stuff. I was really, really impressed by this. It was very colorful, very beautiful game. The spell system is really awesome. When you're going through, you'll come against merchants or thieves, different types of enemies, and if you stomp on them and kill them, you get their item. And their item is a spell component. At the beginning, you don't know any spells, but as you go on, you actually get scrolls that tell you different spells. That some are attack spells. You cast lightning, throw fireballs. I have shields for defense. Some are gameplay elements where you can shrink down to go to hidden areas and stuff like that to progress. But you have to read the scrolls and then use the components to make the spell. And then once you have the spell, you can cast it over and over as long as you have enough mana. So there's a lot going on in this game. I saw a few reviews that were like, oh, it's too much like Mario. They didn't add anything new. I completely disagree. The spell element in this is fantastic.
I mean, effectively, you're whipping up your own power-ups.
Yeah. But it's for use at any time. And the game is fair for its damage. If you get hit once, it has the sonic effect. You'll lose all your magic. And then if you get hit again, you'll die. But the magic pops out, so you can go and collect it, get some of it back.
Sort of like Sonic's Ring.
Yeah, it's exactly like Sonic's Rings. So in that way, in that element of it, it is very fair. It's a very fair game. I just wish the controls were tighter. And it had one element of this game that was inexcusable and unforgivable. The longer you hold a direction, the faster your guy will go. And what I mean by that is he'll start out at a walking pace, and then about 3 steps in, without you doing anything, he'll start running. And the run speed's about twice as fast as his walk speed. So you'll be going up to a pit, and you'll have the mental timing so that you get to the edge and you hit the button to make the jump. But right before you get to that edge, you'll start sprinting, and then your timing's messed up and you fall in the hole. Unfortunate, because it kills this game for me. I found it nearly unplayable because of that one stupid design choice. They had the buttons. They could have added in a run button like any other platformer, and this would have been a top shelf game. But as it is, it's hard to recommend because that control element is so damning to the game that it makes it frustrating. What did you think about it? What did you think about Flink?
I'd not heard of this game, as I mentioned, and so when it came up, I'm like, oh, here we go. That was my first thought. And the more I played this game, I could see the fingerprints of the Lionheart gang.
Yeah.
And I will say, on Amigos, me and Bo joke all the time about how stupid the mascots are. Flink is one of the better mascots.
Absolutely.
He's very endearing looking.
Yes.
The way he moves, the way he looks at you when he does stuff. I mean, he's everything that the Lionheart character was not in terms of the way he looked. I love Lionheart, but the character kind of looks goofy. This guy obviously he looks cool, but like if I was a kid, I'd be like, oh, that's a cool little kid doing stuff. He looks good. The detail on the enemies and the forest, the backgrounds, the areas you go is great. Again,
tremendous.
Hank is one of your top shelf artists. I mean,
he is.
He may be the best.
Pixel art. Yeah.
He is outstanding. I mean, he's magical. The things you see in this are remarkable. This looks like a title that would fit anywhere. We often, on the Amigas, we talk about how would this do on the Super Nintendo, or how would this do on the Genesis, and often they're left wanting. This could fit right in anywhere.
Yeah.
As a beautiful title.
Yes.
The gameplay itself. When the game starts, you get sort of what it reminded me of was a Super Mario World style. Like overhead map to show you where you have. Well, I mean, it's not like you get a lot of choices.
It's just levels, yeah.
Yeah. It's still a nice touch. The gameplay itself, like you said, is a lot of just jumping on stuff, just like it is like a Mario. 2 jumps usually. 1 jump stuns, 1 jump kills on a lot of stuff, and you collect mana. I think it pops out of them. There are secret worlds. There are. Varied gameplay. There's swinging, there's hanging, there's climbing, there's all the stuff you would expect. There are some puzzly type elements. Again,
like physical puzzles where you take a rock and you throw it and it will bounce you to a new place.
Yeah. Pushing
rocks.
You could pick up like the treasure chest you come across. You could throw those at guys, which that took me a while to figure that element out. So they tried to, again, they didn't try to reinvent the wheel, but they tried to perfect it to a certain degree. I think the spell system is great. We played
tremendous.
Me and Bo played a game on the Amigas. I can't for life remember what it is, where you play these 2 witches, and it had a very similar system where you would take these, we would make magic spells. I mean, I was ripped off directly from it, but it works. I think it's fun. It's fun to kind of collect this stuff to see what you can do, and getting those scrolls when you get one, you're like, okay, what do I got here?
Yeah,
it'll tell you what you need. Do I have what I need? Let me go get this or whatever. It makes it. It's an added element to it that it was interesting. The fact that when you get hit, you lose some of your little mana points. You can go get them. You're not left with your pants down anywhere.
That aspect made it very playable.
Something else you didn't mention that blew me away were the end bosses in this. There were some really cool end bosses. The first guy is this sort of like giant ape with like pointy sticks sort of lashed to his arms. And he's huge, and he goes around the screen, and you're trying to avoid these things and throw rocks up at him in like the crotch, basically. Funny stuff. There's another ape. There's several apes in here, weird creatures that they're huge on the screen.
Huge sprites.
They look great.
Yeah.
This game played. I didn't see any slowdown to speak of. So I liked all those aspects. In terms of the control, I didn't hate it as much as you. Maybe it's because I was using the proper controller. But I thought it ran okay. I mean, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't.
Oh, the running. No,
I'm talking about when I said, I mean, I thought it controlled okay.
Oh.
I mean, I can see what you're saying, but I mean, I got used to it. Did I fall in a lot of holes? Yes.
Did you ever die from enemies?
Oh yeah, at first I did until I got to figure out what was going on. But the enemies don't move all that quickly.
See, I never from game one. I never died from an enemy. I always died by falling in a hole.
There were, yeah. I mean, you also gain new like abilities, basically like this. You could slide on your hiney downhill that stick, which is fun. I mean, so you pick up stuff as you go.
Platform elements.
That makes Flink more formidable. I thought it was this is a quality title in terms of a platformer. There was not it was a decent length. I mean, it's not gonna change the world, but it was a decent length.
It's about 2 hours.
The music was like I said.
I didn't go all the way through it.
Here's the thing.
You didn't beat this, did you?
No, God, no. I mean, I watched the playthrough where I got the music on this is streamed from the CD.
Yeah.
And call me a purist. I would much rather hear a score. Like if you compare this to say the Lionheart score crushes this. Crushes it.
It's this the music is simplified. It doesn't have as many voices.
It's not bad.
No, it's not. I'm not killing it.
Yeah.
I'm not killing it. But it doesn't have as many voices, which means it doesn't have as many intricacies to really flesh out the tune. You've got your basic drum. You've got your your setting line, your beat, and then you've got something over top of that, and then you might have one other element woven into it sometimes.
This could have been background music on Mr. Ghostly. I mean, it's not.
Oh, yeah, it's
just
nothing
sort of generic.
driving.
It's nothing that's going to be like. I mean, of course, the game overall is cute. Unlike Lionheart, which is cool, this is more cute. Cute's okay, but and so the music is representative of cute, not cool. A lot of the stuff you saw in Lionheart, some of the elements that were used in the platforming there appear here. Jumping up on alternating leaves and riding and stuff. So I mean, so they used some of what the guys had learned before to make this. What guys worked on it.
I just want to point out something real quick. This is kind of off subject.
Yeah.
My game, Flink, we're comparing to Lionheart, one of the top Amiga games.
Thank you.
Correct. Microcosm, we're comparing to Crazy Golf. So I just want to.
You're comparing it to Crazy Golf. I'm not going that far.
Yeah.
I would say what I would compare it to would be something like Rise of the Robots.
No.
Something that took a long time to build, has a ton of money invested in it.
Rise of the Robots, it's way more playable. But anyway, let's talk about Flink. Let's talk about Flink.
It's crap. Yeah, go ahead.
This game also, like I said, came out on the Sega properties where it did much, much better. It really did not change much. The graphics are a little deeper, a little. They turned the contrast bar a little down, and it has some foreground elements. Mm-hmm. That's the big key off to let you know that it's the Mega Drive over the Amiga version.
Although the Amiga version has some nice parallel,
beautiful parallax scrolling, but it doesn't have any foreground stuff.
Well, but I mean, it's an attractive looking scroll.
Absolutely. Yeah. Flink himself. The animations on him, tons.
Yeah.
The enemies in this game, tons. Yeah. Bosses, there's 5 bosses.
I looked at every one of them.
Yeah. This was. I wish either the controls were better or maybe they just needed to click with me better. I wish I could have got farther than I did on this on my own, but watching the playthrough of this was an absolute joy. Watching all the animations, all the interactions between your character, making the spells, if you make them wrong, like it blows up, or like little lemmings will pop out and like kind of like kick at you and then run off. That kind of stuff, top notch. The secrets in this, top notch. Someone needs to grab this property. Someone needs to buy this property. Remake this game. Put it on the Switch, and you're gonna sell 100,000 copies.
Oh, listen to you.
100,000 copies guaranteed. Someone gets this property. They don't even have to do much because it's already beautiful. They just need to fix the controls to be more in line with what people expect, and they have 100,000 copies sold, $20. Free money right there, people. I'm telling you.
You know, one thing I thought was odd was that when you finish a level, there's just like a electric beam you've been across.
Yeah.
The first time I saw that, I thought it was an enemy. It doesn't look like the finish line.
Oh no, it's just you're taking down. I could
have done with that. That's one thing I thought was odd. The controls that they're almost sort of analog in a way, aren't they?
They want to be analog on a digital pad. That's bad.
You don't need it. You don't need it for this. I didn't have the trouble. I didn't have as much trouble, but the controls, they weren't perfect. They were pretty. They were okay for me. I thought they were okay. But yeah, this game is a beauty. I mean, it's a beauty. You know, that team again. I'm not. For me, it's almost like I found something to play after Lionheart. So, because this one's going to go back into my rotation.
Yes.
Just so I could give this one a shot.
The scores on this from back in the day range from a 66, which is outlandish. Come on, 66, way too low. Way too low. It deserves better than that. All the way up to an 87, which is probably a little high, but way more reasonable than a 66. If you have the ability to check this out, it emulates really well. It plays with a controller.
And you said this got released on what else that got released on?
The Sega CD and Mega Drive.
Really?
Yes.
So, but they were do you think this had to be on a CD? I guess that's where I'm going here. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of work, but could not a console have actually put this on a cart?
Not with the music. Let's strip the music out of the equation. Do I think the art elements of this are too much for a CD? It would have been
too much for cartridge.
Yeah. It would have been a tight squeeze, and I only say that because there is so much animation. And there are so many enemy variants, and the so many backgrounds and stuff. It would have been very, very tight to get this. I think to get this onto a 16 meg cart, like a Super Nintendo style cart. I think it could have been done, especially when you think of games like Donkey Kong Country, sort of thing.
I think it could have absolutely been put on a card.
But it would have to be 16-bit.
I think it would have had a much better life on those, because I'm guessing this didn't sell a ton anywhere they went with it.
I could not find any numbers on it.
And we've never seen Misadventures of Flink 2. Let's put that way.
And what's also very sad is at the end of this game, the credits when it goes through the ending, you free all the wizards, you win, yay, and then it has little portraits of the people who developed and did the music and stuff. And at the very end, they're like, yeah, we'll be back soon. And it was like, no.
Yeah.
Flink won't.
Yeah, I had the same feeling. It's kind of a bummer.
And this is the type of game that really hurts your soul when you know that these people didn't make money off of it, because they deserved to make money off this game. 9 months in development to get this out is crazy. It's that good.
Well, they were a good team.
The numbers, the eBay numbers on this, you could buy it right now for $265.
Oh, I knew it was going to be pricey.
Or you can get this game in compilation with your game, so you get Flink and Microcosm and Power Drive for $405.
Wow. Well, I'm not surprised. And I'm guessing there weren't too many of these things pressed.
Yeah, I would say not. End of the cycle. Yeah. Look it up, guys. It's worth taking a peek at.
Sort of a depressing note to end on. So we need to lift this sucker up.
Oh, how are we going to do that?
It's time to spin the wheel.
Oh, no.
All right, here we go.
Please, wheel. Please show me mercy.
Brent, tell the fine folks out there in the chat room and watching this at home and listening, what did you do this week? What did you add?
We added, per your request, the fight piece, which will be a overall look at fighting games and video games.
Well, if we're gonna pick a couple, we're not gonna look at every fighting game.
Of course.
Okay, give it what you have. What do you feel like doing?
Man, I really want something MMO. Man, I really want to do MMO.
I like to get CDI. Let's keep the ball rolling here. Keep it rolling. will complete the unholy trilogy, the trinity of FM Towns Marty and C32.
Hey!
What do we get?
MMOs.
Look at that. Look at that. So, how's this going to work, Brandon? You want to tell the people?
We are going to choose 2 MMOs, either current or past, and do a review or retrospect on them.
So, do you have one in mind?
I know what you're going to pick, so I won't pick that. I'll pick something different.
I've got one in mind. Let's just put it that way. So that should be an interesting look.
We both have rich and deep histories with MMOs.
Yeah, it's not in recent history.
I am actually still currently playing a couple. So.
Very good, very good. So we want to say hello to everyone in the chat room that's watching us put this monstrosity together. What do we got, Brent? Throw some names out here.
I'll let you read.
I can't read that far. Just read them.
Yeah,
just mispronounce their names and insult them. Go ahead.
We got Sean Ping. We got Retro Man Cave. Picard 2005.
Ooh.
Anthony Jarvis. Mike Whalen. We got.
You're bonsai and you had to make it bigger.
Well, you know.
Retro Man Cave.
How about that one?
Megdalia Kolika.
Yeah, that's a new face, I believe.
Man, that's a. Yeah, I like it.
Necronom.
Matthew Perron, I see him in there.
Airsoft Models.
So we've got a pretty good show up this week.
Andy Davis.
Next week, we should also mention that you don't even know this, so I'm going to spring this on you. For those that want to show up on here next week, we will be filming the Amigos or ARG as usual, and then me and Brent are going to stick around and do next week's Amigos, Everything Amiga podcast. And your old buddy here will be taking the place of Boat as he's in Ireland, probably drunk as beyond belief over there. I would assume.
But what am I doing?
You're going to be in the Amigo next. I'm not telling you. I'll tell you later. I can't announce that now. I have to announce it later. I know. Everyone out there knows, but you don't know. That's why I'm not saying nothing. So if you want to see us do a double, show up next week. Before we go, I also want to mention that I am deep in the throes. A heartily well-met challenge. It's Amigo Aaron's weight loss wager, Brent, which I propose that I could lose 100 pounds before the Amigathon in July. And I'm looking for people to sponsor me on the path for a certain amount of money per pound. All we're doing right now is taking emails. You can go to everythingamiga.com for details and where you can send your pledge. All the money raised will go to the Children's Miracle Network, hospitals, charity, 100% charity. If I don't lose the 100 pounds, then I got problems. I've got to pay $5 American for every pound I come up short, Brent. What do you think?
You don't have the money for that.
I know. Do you think I can lose 100 pounds by July? Just to be honest.
That's a lot of weight.
I've got a lot of weight right here. Here in the old...
We're big guys, so we lose that first initial boost pretty quick. But boy, it slows down.
So what you're doing is actually you're trying to depress me here.
No, I'm motivating you.
Is that what that is? Soon there'll be one big guy here and a normal size guy, and I'll be me, Amigo Aaron.
You'll be both?
That's right. That's correct. That's correct. So, next week, Brent, MMOs, should be a good time.
It's going to be awesome, guys.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, and we will see you next week. Until then,
Flink.
aloha!